Hi, I'm Mamie Kruger with Your Sleeping Baby, and I help tired families create independent sleepers so that everyone in the family can be at their absolute best. So, today I want to talk about 5 benefits of an early bedtime for your baby or your toddler. Many times, especially when we have our first baby, putting our baby to bed somewhere between 6 and 8 p.m. seems ridiculously early. We've probably been used to going to bed at 10 or maybe even 11. So 6 or 7 at night does not even seem reasonable to be putting a baby to bed at. But this is exactly what you need to do. Most babies age 3 months and up, all kids, are hardwired for a bedtime somewhere between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. That's your window. Even once your kids get to be school age and are no longer napping, 7:45, 8 p.m., that's your cutoff. Kids are ready to go to bed. There are so many benefits to getting your kids in bed early. So let's talk about 5 of them. So the first reason that we want our kids to be in bed between 6 and 8 p.m. is because kids that go to bed before they are overtired are going to have a much easier time going to sleep and staying asleep. And the likelihood that they're going to sleep till 7-ish, 6:30 in the morning, it's much more likely. Kids that go to bed too late are generally going to wake up earlier in the morning. So getting your child to bed between 6 and 8 avoids them being overtired and gets them down in their sleep window. And when you get a child down in their sleep window, they're going to be much more likely to be able to put themselves to sleep and stay asleep. Here's what happens in your baby or your toddler's body when they go to bed too late. If you are missing their sleep window when they're going down, their brain is signaling to their adrenal glands to release cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. It's our fight or flight hormone, and it's the hormone that wakes us up in the morning. But when you have elevated cortisol at a time of the night when your cortisol should be at its lowest, essentially that cortisol is fighting against their sleep drive. You know your baby or your toddler is exhausted. You know they need to go to bed, but their body is essentially fighting against them. The hormone responsible for that is cortisol, and that just means that you've missed their sleep window. So if you see a spike in hyperactivity, silliness, running around, or a baby that maybe is crying uncontrollably or has super red eyes, red eyebrows, all of those things are signs that you've probably missed or about to miss their sleep window. And going to sleep for that child is going to become very, very difficult. And bedtime can literally take hours if you have a baby, or it can even take up to an hour with a toddler, or sometimes even longer. That's where parents end up completely drained, exhausted. They've been in the nursery or in their toddler's bedroom for an hour or two, and it's now 9 or 10 p.m., and they just are walking out of the room because that's how long it took to get that child to bed. The second benefit of early bedtimes is that it reduces night wakings and it reduces or completely eliminates early morning waking. Both night wakings and early morning waking can be caused by a child who is overtired going to bed, and too late of a bedtime facilitates an overly tired baby or toddler. I get this call all the time. Their toddler is waking up multiple times a night. They were sleeping great. The first question that I ask is, what time are they going to bed and what time are they getting up in the morning? And likely the answer is they're going to bed at 9 o'clock, 9:30, even 8:30 can be too late, especially if your toddler is no longer napping. That's way too late of a bedtime for a non-napping toddler. You always have to remember that once your toddler drops their nap, their bedtime needs to be moved earlier. You cannot continue to have an 8 o'clock or 8:30 bedtime with a toddler who's getting up at 7 in the morning. Now they're not napping. That is a 13 and a half hour day. That's just way too long. Most toddlers will need to start to be put to bed by like 6:30 at the latest once they drop that nap. So once that parent tells me that their toddler is going to bed at 9 o'clock, the first thing that I tell them is, I need you to move that bedtime way back. If their toddler is still napping, they can move it back a little bit. If their toddler isn't napping, which is likely the case because an overtired child will start fighting naps because sleep just feels so difficult. Their body is so overtired that even going down for a nap can become really, really difficult, and they just start fighting sleep in general. So getting that bedtime moved back to even 6 o'clock, that's okay. 6 o'clock, 6:30 will completely eliminate the night wake ups. It will eliminate the early morning waking. Problem solved just by moving their bedtime earlier. So the third benefit of an early bedtime is that the most restorative sleep happens before midnight. So putting your child to bed at 7 p.m., 7:30, 6:30, they're going to get a good chunk of sleep before midnight. That's when the majority of deep sleep happens. So a child that goes to bed at 9 o'clock or 9:30, they're not going to make up for that deep sleep that they're missing. And they're likely not going to sleep in later in the morning. Typically, sleeping later in the morning to make up for lost sleep doesn't happen until you get into the adolescent stage. So young children, whether they go to bed at 10 p.m. or they go to bed at 7 p.m., are still hardwired for a wake up somewhere between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., but usually it's somewhere between 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning. They're not going to make up for that lack of sleep that they're missing at the beginning of the night. They're just going to get less sleep in totality for their entire night. Benefit number 4 is because kids need a total of 10 to 12 hours of night sleep, and honestly, most kids are going to fall in that 11 to 12 hour time frame. When they go to bed at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. and they're sleeping until 7, 7:30, 6:30 the next morning, they're getting all the sleep that they need. The other thing that you have to take into consideration with so many two-parent working households where both parents are working out of the house and you have a child who probably has to be up early in the morning, like at 6:30 or sometimes even earlier, you have to take that into consideration when you're planning bedtime. You cannot put a child to bed at 8 or 8:30 or 9 o'clock and then pull them out of bed at 6, 6:30, even 7. And expect that they're going to be rested. And what I find so interesting is so many parents are pulling their children out of bed early. Their child is exhausted, they're cranky, and the parents don't even understand that it's simply because they're not getting enough sleep at night. I just recently had a call with a former client, and this is exactly what was happening to her. She has a 4-year-old child, and she was cranky in the morning, impossible to get up, not waking up to her alarm. All of those things are because they have a wake-up clock, right? So the wake-up clock was not even waking her up. All of those things are telling you your child is exhausted. She stopped napping prematurely. All of that is a sign that you have a very, very tired child, and she was waking up during the middle of the night. As soon as they moved that bedtime earlier, which for this family felt really difficult because, again, they were both working outside the home, they were able to do it. But they had to back up dinner until about 5 o'clock, 5:30 latest. And before they called me, they were eating dinner at around 7 o'clock, 7:15 at night. So you can see how when you do dinner that late, everything gets pushed back. Dinner has to come earlier, and this might mean that you need to food prep on the weekends. You're going to need to have a plan. You're going to need to have things prepared. So as soon as you walk in that door, if you're picking your child up from daycare, which this family was, they didn't have a nanny at home who was, could help with meals or anything like that. They needed to be ready to go. Like the food needed to be ready to go. So preparation and planning is key, especially when you're both working out of the home, you're picking up a child from daycare, and then you're going home. If you have a nanny at home or someone at home taking care of your children, That is a great task to give them while your kids are napping, is to have them do some food prep so that dinner can be ready to go and you're not having to walk in the door and start preparing your dinner. So because most kids' circadian rhythms land somewhere in that 6 to 8 p.m. bedtime, 6 to 8 p.m. wake up time, for a child that has to be up early in the morning, there is just no option but to get them into bed earlier. And you might need to really be creative. You might need to change some things in your life. You might need to go from daycare to having a nanny. There's a variety of different ways to troubleshoot and remedy a situation where maybe you're feeling stuck, like we don't have any other options. There's always options to ensure that your children are getting in bed on time so that they can wake up in the morning and be actually rested and ready for their day. And the fifth benefit of getting your kids to bed early is simply your own marital satisfaction and your own personal downtime. Parents that have their kids in bed by 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30, even 8 o'clock are happier. They have time to fill their own cup. They can watch a movie. They can spend time together. They can catch up on household tasks. Whatever it is that fills your cup, you now have at least 2 hours probably before you even need to be in bed to do whatever it is that you want to do. Watch a show, watch Netflix, whatever. This contributes greatly to you just feeling satisfied, for you not going to bed feeling exhausted, being able to have downtime at the end of the day for everyone, but especially if you have small children, is absolutely essential to your mental health, to the health of your marriage, and just to your overall quality of life. It is so, so important. And while, yes, there are seasons of life where, especially when we have a young baby, where that may not happen, it needs to be just a season. That season should not last for years. It should last for months as you have new babies, but it shouldn't go on forever. You need downtime at the end of the day, because if you are not filling your cup, you are not going to be able to be the mother, the father, the friend, the sister, the worker, whatever it is. You are not going to be able to be the best version of yourself if you have absolutely no margin in your life at the end of the day, and you're literally going from putting a child to bed or maybe falling asleep in the bed with that child and then going to bed yourself. Like, you're going to completely feel drained, exhausted, resentful, angry, all the things. You're not going to be a happy camper. So getting those bedtimes moved earlier is absolutely essential to your own health. And I would highly encourage you, if you cannot get this figured out on your own by watching this video, definitely reach out to me. I am happy to help you troubleshoot and get this problem solved in your family. So I hope that this video was helpful. If it was, please hit the subscribe button so that you can get alerted every week when a new video drops.